It's been a while since I've done this, but hey guys, it's Lauren here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're here to talk about anime once again, and this time we are going to talk about Blue Lock, the breakout soccer anime that came out during peak-tober, fall 2022, amidst all of these other amazing shows like My Hero Academia Season 6, Bleach, One Piece, again, there's always One Piece, Mob Psycho, and so many other great amazing shows. It's hard to make a show, especially one that's new and in its first season and first curse, stand out so well, considering everything else that was going on. But somehow Blue Lock managed to stand on its own 2 feet, and that is mainly because of the hype of the show. Each episode was an adrenaline rush. It's because of that and because of the hypeness that was embodied in every single episode that it managed to stay high in the rankings despite all of the other amazing animes that were out that season, many of which were anticipated for decades. So that is something incredibly impressive. Another thing that definitely helped it stand out is the fact that as Blue Lock was coming out, especially in its last few episodes of the first curve, the World Cup was also going on, so there was the hype of soccer in the real world as well as in the anime world. It was also following on the trains of Ao Ashi, which they are both soccer animes but very different shows. I would highly recommend, actually, if you're watching this video and are interested in Blue Lock, to watch Ao Ashi, because I believe it's also an amazing soccer anime. Blue Lock just had the best situational luck in the world. But as it says in the manga, because I have read ahead in the manga, I watched the first episode, got immediately obsessed, binged the entire manga, and now I'm reading it chapter by chapter every couple of weeks. I'm very obsessed. As the manga says, luck isn't necessarily just something that just so happens to happen to you. You have to be in the best situation, have the best preparation, and be ready for that luck to come and find you and for you to take advantage of it. That's basically what Blue Lock did. So the hype that Blue Lock has also might be its greatest weakness. I said it, don't attack me, but without further ado, we are going to hop into why I'm saying something so incredibly crazy on the internet. So first of all, let's talk about what is so great about Blue Lock, its hypeness. Let's go more in depth about it. Blue Lock did have a very strong start. Honestly, if I were to say, based off all the anime that I watched in the fall, if I was to just talk about all of their first episodes, and this includes Chainsaw Man as well, which I almost forgot to mention, if you look at all of their first episodes, the one that had the best first episode for sure had to be Blue Lock. And it's because it took everyone off guard. We've all watched sports animes before. We've watched Haikyuu, Kuroko no Basket, Ace of the Diamond, Prince of Tennis, so many other just amazingly good sports animes. But what made Blue Lock stand out is the fact that in the first episode, we were shocked out of our minds with a big plot twist. So we go into it and we meet Isagi, who is in the middle of a game. That's something a lot of sports animes don't do immediately. We kind of start off with the protagonist at their home, some situation which isn't immediately on the court or in the place at which the game is going to take place. In this case, Blue Lock hops straight into it, and that suits the theme of the show, which is basically you're going where the game is the most intense, and where the game is the most intense is in the game. So that's where we spend the vast majority of the show. We get that right off the bat in the first episode. Going in, Isagi is in the middle of the game. He takes a huge L by deciding to be a team player, something that is usually cultivated in all of these sports animes, because as what's his name? The little psycho motherfucker with the glasses. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He's basically just like, that is the heart of a lot of Japanese sports, which is why Japan is so good at sports like baseball and things like that. But when it comes to soccer, they're weaker. At least up until this World Cup, because Japan kind of ate. But essentially, Isekai did the thing that you'd expect a normal sports anime protagonist to do, and he fails. And that immediately sets us right up to coattails, because we're like, oh, so this isn't gonna be what we thought. Isagi is clearly not with the team at the end when they all huddle together and they cry over losing the game, but they're just happy they lost as a team. And Isagi's just like, but if I just kept going, I would have won. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. He probably would have, despite the fact that it isn't even like him in the show. That's what happens. And then at the end of the show, after we meet this really impressive player who we assume is going to be Isagi's right-hand man, he is eliminated by the treacherous game of Blue Lock. He's eliminated instantly. It was insane. Literally smacked in the face with his failure. It was crazy and it was delightful. That was one of the best first episodes I've seen this season. And it's because of reasons I listed before. It just broke stereotypes. It broke tropes. You didn't expect anything that happened in it, and it was one of the strongest episodes to this point of Blue Lock. There's a lot more hype left to come, and I'm so excited to see it all, but that was still one of the best ones we've seen in Blue Lock so far. So that was insane. It had an insane premiere, and it kind of just kept up consistently with that momentum. If I were to describe Blue Lock, essentially, if you have not watched it yet and you just clicked on this video for the sake of it, Blue Lock is basically like a soccer tournament, but like the Squid Game version of it. Like, you go into each section of the tournament trying to survive, because if you're out of it, basically your soccer life is over instead of your literal life in Squid Game, and you just never know what the next trial or game is going to be. And that is the essence of Blue Lock. So it's pretty crazy. Obviously, we know that's a really good success and formula for television because we've seen it succeed with Squid Game. We've seen it succeed with a lot of other animes. There's also been, I feel like, a good amount of those. Tomodachi Game came out a while ago, but also, like, if I were to be completely honest, Tomodachi Game is not that good. Blue Lock succeeded where Tomodachi Game did not. That's how I will say. Blue Lock really succeeded because of its animation, because the intensity is embodied very, very well in the way it's animated and its art style and the way that they maintained that art style from the manga. Also, like, the animation, the CGI effects really help make sure to maintain the players' movements as they're moving throughout the field, which you don't actually see in Aoashi if I were to compare them. Again, we're not going to make this a Blue Lock versus Aoashi video. We're going to try not to. But one thing Aoashi did not have that Blue Lock does have is the ability to, like, really show the movements of soccer in the show. And Aoashi, like, you kind of get vague impressions of that, but it's not the best. It's just simply not the best. I wouldn't say it detracted from the show, but I think if it did have better animation, it only could have gotten better from there. Blue Lock was lucky in the sense where it got, like, a really good animation studio to do what it needed to be done, and it got the budget. For sure. There are many shots where it got the budget, that is for sure. Each episode is also just incredibly high stakes. I've already said this, but every episode usually is just going straight into a game. There's maybe 10 minutes where the motherfucker with the glasses does this little explanation to the team. They talk about their problems and try to fix it in the game. But the game usually starts immediately within the next episode. So there are no breaks. There's no slice of life moments. There's no moments when the players aren't in their little Blue Lock uniforms and just, like, vibing out that way. There's no moment like that. They're just constantly within the steel building. They don't see the sun, like, they're just stuck in there and all they're thinking is soccer, soccer, soccer. That's how they're getting better, and that's the entire point of the show. They're trying to be where the soccer is the most intense, so always in the middle of a game, always in the middle of these high intensity situations, and never really lingering in any of the emotional moments for too long. Now, that is Blue Lock's strength. For sure, because there are many animes. I'm not gonna say the one, but you already know the one that'd be doing all them flashbacks way too often. There are many shows, especially old gen anime, that does overuse flashbacks and overuses slice of life filler moments, and it ruins it. But I must say, in Blue Lock's case, I feel like they could even add more of it, and that might be its sole weakness. Blue Lock's greatest strength is its hypeness and its high intensity situations that consistently happen every show. It doesn't feel like there's really any lull in the pacing, but that also might be its greatest weakness. And let me explain why before y'all come for me, okay? Because I still believe it's a great show, but let me explain. The weakness of the show is essentially that it doesn't really have any of those slice of life moments. It doesn't really have any moments where the lives of the characters are fully shown in a certain way. There is no world outside of Blue Lock. It is just Blue Lock. You're just exist in the stadium with these other players, with these other boys, trying to figure out who's gonna be the best, who's gonna continue to be able to play soccer. But when it comes to sports anime, that slice of life aspect is almost incredibly crucial, one might say. I'm gonna bring up an example that you'll probably hear a lot from me whenever I'm talking about an anime video of any sort, because it is my favorite anime of all time, Haikyuu. Haikyuu is one of the best sports animes to exist to this day. To this day, if you want to argue with me, argue with the wall. To this day, Haikyuu is one of the best sports animes I've ever seen that's ever come into existence, into creation. It is fantastic. The manga, also fantastic. Source material is so good. Look, Haikyuu is basically the bar for me. And one thing Haikyuu has that no other anime has that is as well done is the slice of life element embodied into the show. Haikyuu, they are a sports anime. It takes place in a high school. We see the high school classrooms. We see Hinata, like, biking to school every day. We see him working out outside of the practices. We see these moments where the characters in the show exist in a space that is outside of their high school and outside of the place in which they practice and outside of the games. That is something Haikyuu excels at. For example, there's the school scenes that they always have where we see that some of the characters are dumber than others, and it's like Kageyama, Tanaka, and Nishinoya. I didn't want to say names, but I had to say it. Those characters exist very well in the spaces in which they embody in the school, and it basically adds more dimension to them, because we've seen characters like Kageyama before. Look, we've all seen that image where it's basically like everyone's like, okay, these motherfuckers right here, these are basically, like, we've all seen that image where it's like all of these characters are lined up together, head by head. They all have dark hair, blue eyes typically, and just have very emo-like demeanors. We've all seen these characters. These are the Sasuke's of animes, okay? Like, Sasuke is basically like the bar girl type of character. All of these other characters are equally as emo, that are equally as skilled, that have all these backgrounds. That's basically Kageyama, right? But because of the slice of life aspect, we see that this motherfucker is stupid as hell, and it's fantastic because we love him even more for it. He is so dumb when it it comes to anything outside of his sport. But when he's in that sport, he's excellent at it. And that makes him feel more human. It makes the show feel like these characters are actually boys that are capable of being related to, as opposed to just a person that you're watching on the screen trying to live viscerally through. It's someone that you could possibly become, which is what makes Haikyuu feel so intense, and I don't know, what brings a lot of emotion to the show. We also have scenes like, for example, when Yachi is introduced to the show, where we see things again outside the high school. We see that there's characters interested in marketing that have different kind of career prospects, but are still very much interacting with these very big volleyball idiots within the show. And that all just shows that there is a world that exists outside of the volleyball stage. Not only that, but in the games, we have community members come into the stands and talk, and you can tell that they're all part of the community. They've all interacted with characters within the main cast before, they've witnessed them play before, they've seen the history of the school in which they play at. There is a large world that exists outside these characters, which makes the world feel more intense, real, and still somehow does not detract from the pacing at all. If anything, it just adds to the depth of the story. So that's something Haikyuu does excellently at that Blue Lock lacks. This is something that Kuroko no Basket also has. Kuroko no Basket is another really good sports anime. Unlike Haikyuu, I feel like Kuroko no Basket is actually like very, very high with the hype. Not that Haikyuu don't have hype, because Haikyuu does have hype, but I feel like Haikyuu's hype doesn't exist fully all the time. In Kuroko no Basket, we literally see these motherfuckers shoot beams and do like impossible supernatural movements. Like if I were to say that Block was close to any sports anime that exists right now, that would be Kuroko no Basket. Kuroko no Basket has those same like borderline supernatural sports scenes when the main characters are doing excellently well, and it makes you feel like you're on the edge of your seat waiting to see how the situation turns out. But Kuroko no Basket does have that slice of life element, with the fact that we can see these characters being goofs during practice and just doing like dumb things, and people in the stands that exist outside of practice area, we see them wear normal clothes. In Blue Lock, they are in that same ass like sports leotard. It is sad. We need them boys in different clothes. Who does their laundry? Do they have multiple versions of that uniform? I'm so sorry, because now I'm stuck on it. Basically to say, they have like a really good slice of life aspect just by showing the audience members. Not only that, it just allows some other voice to speak other than the main characters, and allows us as the audience to breathe from the constant perspective of one character or like a particular group of characters all of the time. These things just like help add depth to the story. They also help bring life to the characters some more, because sometimes you get too focused on what a character is capable of as opposed to who they are, and that sometimes can make them feel flat if you don't do it properly. Essentially, the slice of life element, which involves school, family life, crushes, just school drama, like all that other stuff is usually included in sports animes, because sports usually take place in a high school setting when there's a lot of other stuff going on, and explores the lives of all of these high schoolers. It's a sports anime which combines elements of shonen, where it's like a coming of age, there's just something high and intense going on, but it's centered and grounded in real life. Blue Lock, it has those things to a certain extent, but you can't necessarily say, as of right now especially, that the show is grounded in real life. I said it. Y'all can argue with me in the comments, but I said it. The closest thing we get to that in Blue Lock, I will say, is the Chigiri episode, because we get this look into a character's background and like what caused them trauma in the past. I think I love that episode so much, because in other sports animes, you do see a lot of the characters in their lives, but you don't necessarily get that aspect of injury and like the risk of that. And Blue Lock actually does tackle that, which is amazing. And Chigiri's character is great because of that, because we can see his resilience beyond just wanting the goal, but because there is something in his past where he's like, okay, I want to overcome this and I want to become who I used to be. That shit was fire. But it basically was only him who's gotten a backstory to that extent. We've seen Batra, but his only thing is that he has a monster that whispers to him. So far in the show, okay, I'm just saying so far, but so far that's all we've seen. But I don't think we really even know the backstory of Isagi. Like, we just see his parents are like normal Japanese parents. We don't really know much about the backgrounds of these characters. Also, we got Ryo and Nagi, and they're interesting, but also like Ryo's backstory is not the most compelling as just being like a rich kid. The most compelling thing about like their relationship is the fact that it's their relationship. Like, we don't really care about their individual backstories as much as we care about how they met and everything like that. Chigiri and Ryo and Nagi, that's probably the closest we get to seeing the outside lives of these characters, but it's only glimpses and flashbacks, not necessarily anything that's happening in the present and impacting them overtly now. So I will give them that, but when it comes to slice of life and showing a life outside of soccer, Blue Lock isn't doing that. But again, that's basically the whole point of the show. Let me just reiterate, like literally they have said in the show that the whole point is to be in the most intense part of soccer. So when it comes to that, Blue Lock is succeeding. It's just that, for one, obviously that we don't get as much depth into the characters and who they are outside of soccer. We really only know their soccer personalities, and it's kind of a shame because the cast in Blue Lock is very, very good. Like, I'd say they all have a really good range of personalities. technicalities, but we don't really know, like, for example, say their favorite foods, like what time they sleep. The author or mangaka does a really good job trying to explore that just through their physicality and the way that they approach soccer. But I think you could add more depth to that by showing like an outside life. But again, it takes place in a tournament. It's kind of the whole point of the show. With what they are working with, I say the show, the series, and the author, they're doing a pretty good job with that. But when it comes to, say, narration, let's talk about that. Because again, in Haikyuu and in Kuroko no Basket, we have people in the stands that exist outside the sport who we've been introduced to before, show that there is a world outside of this, and there's like a lot that goes into this sport that we're just seeing like the most intense parts of it. There are people like that in the stands that help explain the game. In Blue Lock, you don't really get an explanation of soccer, which is fine to a certain extent, because I think after like the first few episodes, if you're not familiar with the sport, which I wasn't really all that familiar with it before I started the show, you could sort of easily understand what was going on, but there's certain rules, penalties, and things like that that you wouldn't necessarily get unless you looked more in depth outside of the show. Like in Haikyuu and Kuroko no Basket, you get more of a sense of what the rules are, and that makes it easier for viewers that are watching a sports anime that don't necessarily know what the sport is about, and it makes it more accessible to people outside of like this niche range. Awashi also does that because we're looking from the lens of a character who doesn't really know that much about the rules or technicalities of soccer, so they're explored and explained in that show. Again, not trying to put Blue Lock and Awashi, you know, against each other. Like, two kings can exist at the same time. I fully believe this, but it does hold that thing over Blue Lock. The fact that there is this aspect in which they're able to explain the sport, because of Blue Lock is mainly focused on the characters' inner monologues, specifically Isagi's, but sometimes we get the other characters such as Chigiri, we get their insight. Like, we basically just get insight of the characters whenever they're trying to get a goal, but we don't really get an explanation for how they're moving across the field, their thought process, unless they're Isagi. But it does grow tiresome to hear the main character's voice like just inner monologuing for long periods of time, like all the time. We're basically just seeing it from this tunnel vision of hype, which is great to a certain extent, but I have noticed, especially like in episodes where there's like a lull in the action, that can be a bit much to constantly just hear the main character's voice all of the time, which is why narration in other forms is really important. In Haikyuu and Kuroko no Basket, like I said, that's shown to the audience, but I'm also just thinking in terms of just like a general narrator. I think Hunter x Hunter is a really good example of this. Well, if you watch the show, and especially the Kimura Ant arc, narrator in that arc is literally amazing. Like, he is phenomenal. This man explains the actions and the thought processes of all the characters without slowing down the action at all. Like, even if the action is slowing, it's literally just because like we're trying to get like a slow motion of what is happening so we can understand at the same time the narrator is basically like reading along with what's going on. And it also gives us a break from when the characters are speaking, what they're thinking personally, and it gives us a broad scope of what's going on the field. For Blue Lock, I think this is literally done in order to fool the audience, so it's kind of on purpose. It's like a close third person, mainly on Isagi's point of view, but you want to fool the audience, so we can't fully understand what's happening on the field watching from like the standard outside perspective. Like, say if you're watching a soccer game or a World Cup game on TV, we as the audience can see more about what's going on in the field than necessarily like a player sometimes, just because like you can see the whole wide scope of the field as opposed to being fooled by like what's right in front of you. Isagi is being fooled by what's right in front of him, and sometimes it takes him a moment to understand, which means it takes us longer to understand. But if you're seeing something like Hunter x Hunter and you see the narrator narrating, then that just means like a lot going on. If you have the Hunter x Hunter scenario, that just means everything that's going on in the characters' processes are being told by a different voice without breaking pace or anything like that. If you do too much inner monologue, sometimes it just feels like it's dragging the pace a bit too much. No matter how stunning the visuals are, how amazing the animation is, sometimes it can get a bit boring in those moments. They're necessary because without them we wouldn't really understand what's going on and we wouldn't get as fooled and all of that, but you could arguably say it could have been better done if other people properly existed in the show other than the Blue Lock players and the guy with the glasses. Despite all of this, obviously Blue Lock is an amazing show. It's very high paced, there's a lot of good action, the cast is very interesting to watch, and there's just so much good stuff going on. If you're a fan of hype and you're just like down for watching hype shit all the time, this isn't really a weakness at all. But if you are the kind of person that does like the sports anime that does give a bit the slice of life aspect and you do like seeing more their characters when they're not necessarily in this one scene and also in different clothes, because goddamn can we get our boys outside of these Blue Lock uniforms, you might have a bit of a problem. But otherwise, I'd say like Blue Lock is structured exactly the way it's meant to be structured. It's just really based off your preference on what story you're on. I think it does a really good job breaking away from standards, as I stated before, and this is one of the ways they're breaking out of it. It's just determining whether or not it's a good thing is based on whoever is watching it. Blue Lock's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness, but is it really a weakness if it doesn't really matter? to the person that's watching it? I say no. Just something I want to talk about and analyze on this channel. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on my medias. I talk a lot about anime on my Twitter, so really feel free to follow me on there. And I will see you all in the next one. Oh, and there'll probably be a lot more of these. So stay tuned and make sure to subscribe down below. I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.